7 months ago, I bought this, my 2011 Jaguar XFR, and turned it into an absolute four-door Salvage with around 700 horsepower. Unfortunately, around 3 months ago, we absolutely smoked a coyote and insurance decided to write off the car. Of course, we decided to buy this thing back from insurance, and since then, I have been looking for a solution to get this thing fixed, recertified, and back on the road. We even traveled 4,000 kilometers across the country to look at a rear-ended facelift XFR that should have been a perfect parts car, but it turned out to be absolute crap, so we brought home the V10 M6 instead. And while I am super stoked about the new purchase of the M6, unfortunately it doesn't give us any solutions to get the Jag back fixed, certified, and on the road, so this thing has sat here without a hope in sight until today. That's right, y'all. Apparently I am that dumb. I have done it again. I thought when I bought this car for $11,000 Canadian, that is the cheapest a person could get a happy, healthy-ish running XFR, but it turns out I was absolutely wrong. This car is rebuilt, meaning it went through a salvage inspection. That is the process here in Alberta to get a salvage car back on the road, and that inspection is extremely stringent and was completed only 3,000 kilometers ago. So the car has a rebuilt status, and it may have over 240,000 kilometers, but it is in incredible shape for that. It doesn't make any funny noises, and it drives very nice, straight, and tight. I know. Your next question is bound to be, how much did we pay for this thing? And the answer is we only paid $6,800 Canadian for this car. We are actually doing pretty fantastic, and I have updated our board here. Of course, we paid $11,000 for the car originally. After all the goodies and things we have added to it, our total is at $17,458. When you take away the 2 insurance claims on the car and add back in our buyback to get the salvage back in our hands, we're not doing too bad, and that had left us at negative $9,009. After a purchase price of $6,800 for this, that brings us to a grand total, as things sit, of negative $2,209, and we're doing not too bad. Between 1 car, 2 car, and 3 car, I'm feeling a little appreciation for all the depreciation going on in here. If you remember in the last video, in 2024 dollars, this car had an MSRP of 150 grand, and these two in 2024 dollars had an MSRP of approximately 117 and 117. When you add that all up, that gets you to $384,000 2024 dollars as a combined MSRP for all the cars in this room. And if we take into account that I paid $33,800 total for all 3 cars combined, that puts us to a grand total of $350,000-ish of depreciation sitting in this room, and that is absolutely insane. But enough of that. It is pretty dark in here. We've got some decent weather out there today. We've got good winter tires on the car and a running, happy, healthy car. So we're going to take this thing out, go for a bit of a drive. We'll show you a bit more about it, and we will go from there. But first, we better deal with that. The tape worked before, and unfortunately, it's going to have to work again. But that's all right. We classed it up a little bit. I've got this crystal clear Gorilla Tape. We put it around the ends instead of in the middle this time. On both sides, firm as can be. Perfect. Let's not hit the parts truck right behind us. Unfortunately, the car wash is closed, so we are just hanging out here in the lovely Canadian winter freezing temperatures. But I am extremely happy with this car for what it is. This thing provides us a solution we've been looking for a while and does it in an absolute fantastic manner. And even if this car does have 240,000 kilometers and a rebuilt status, I am super pumped about it. The previous owner bought it from a salvage auction and actually was the one who salvage inspected it. And before that, best I can tell from the Carfax and everything else, this was a one-owner car. This car was always taken care of at Jaguar, and it had been been taken care of very well. It doesn't make any funny noises or do anything too bad. And in order to get it to pass the salvage inspection, the old owner showed me pictures. All he had to replace was this headlight. He had the hood repaired and repainted, and we can see the Bondo is swelling there a little bit, but it is what it is. The fender was fixed, and even if it is peeling a little bit there, that is the original fender. And then, of course, he bought another bumper cover because the old one was dead, and he had that repainted to match the car as well. Beyond that, it's got brand new brakes on all four corners. I don't know if we will use these pads and rotors, save these pads and rotors, or sell them, but one way or another, we have them, and they will be an asset at some point. It came on almost brand new tires on stock wheels. Of course, it is on our winter setup right now because this is what I put on it to get it home from Calgary so we didn't die on the drive home. But the stocks are in fantastic shape, and the tires on the stocks are nearly brand new Michelin Pilot Sports that should do quite fantastic for us as a summer set. Of course, I wish these tires were on the stock wheels and the tires from the stock wheels were on these because we'll have this as a summer setup eventually, but that's okay. At some point, we will repaint these and make them look a bit better. So for now, they will do good for what they are. The car is not perfect. It's definitely got a few other blemishes, like there is some rust starting in a couple spots, like that on both sides, as well as the rear quarter on both sides. There's a couple other minor chips, dents, dings, things. The PPF, as I showed you on the other side, is peeling on both of the front fenders. And of course, it's a little dirty. And unfortunately, like ours, this car also has some hail damage. The hood is pretty good and there isn't really anything there. But if we take a look, the roof has more hail dents than our car. They just happen to be a bit shallower, and the trunk does as well. So I'm not too sure which car we will use as our base chassis. The cool part is if we use this car, we don't have to spend money to do a salvage inspection, which is $500-600, and we won't have to replace the windshield. The windshield on this one has no cracks, and on the other car, the windshield is cracked, which is something they will force us to change if we put the other car through the salvage inspection. And unfortunately, the list of potential difficulties with getting the other car salvage inspected does not end there. It still very well might be worth doing the salvage inspection, but at bare minimum, we're going to be paying $500-600 for the inspection and $600-700 for the windshield, and potentially it doesn't end there. I don't know how sticky they're going to be about some of the things that are modified on the other car. We had to put holes in the trunk liners so we could install the ice box in the trunk. We have, of course, modified the exhaust in a few different ways. Of course, it's been tuned and there's different pulleys on it, and a handful of other things that might make getting that car to pass a salvage a royal pain in the rear end. It very well might still be worth using that chassis. That chassis has 100,000 less kilometers, and resale value wise and everything else, fatigue on things, that might be the better bet, and it will be less work. But I don't know if it will be worth it. This car, this chassis is in very good shape. There's definitely some things on the body that aren't perfect, but that is the case with the other car as well. The roof and trunk have less hail damage on this car, and regardless of which chassis we can use this trunk. There's gonna be some parts that we use no matter what. We'll be using the peanut butter leather. I like it much better than the black. We will be using the piano black trim, as I like that much better than the wood grain. And there's some body panels, like we will use this hood, we will use the other fenders, we'll likely use these doors. There's a handful of things like that no matter which chassis we use, we will be using. But that doesn't answer our question of, is it better to save some money and use the 240,000 kilometer chassis, or is it better to spend a bit more money and keep the on paper value of the 100,000 less kilometer chassis? So I don't know yet. We'll have to figure out exactly what that looks like, but that is something that will just be dependent on calling the salvage inspection shop and bugging them with some questions and just doing some better inspecting of the two cars we have to see what's in better shape, which chassis has more or less rust, and all of those other things. Looking at the interior of this thing, I'm super stoked about it. I can't believe the condition that the interior of this car is in. The back seats look like they have never been used, and the piano black is so much nicer than the wood grain, in my opinion. The steering wheel in this car is definitely in better shape than the one in the other car, along with a handful of other things. There is no bubbling on the dash like there is in the other car. You can definitely tell this car has been well loved, well cared for, and as the Carfax and receipts all state, it definitely has had an easy life. But enough blabbering, let's go for a bit of a drive. This thing is incredibly quiet and boring. There is no intake drama or supercharger noise. There is no exhaust drama, as this thing is stock, and healthy as can be. But we're still gonna go have some winter fun and go for a bit of a burn. I'm turning traction control right back off, because what is the fun of driving a 500 horsepower supercharged car on great tires with traction control on? Might be great on the highway, but not great if you're gonna have some fun. I'm gonna put this thing in sport mode. And of course, when you have it in sport mode, the paddles actually stay. If you put it in drive, the paddles will override. Like, it won't stay in the gear you leave it in, which is nice if you forget, but when you want to play around a little bit, it is so much better to have it not like that. But we'll see here. Of course, we got all the lovely snow. So quiet in stock form. Like, you can play around with it so much, and it's so much fun. But it is insanely quiet. There is zero supercharger noise, almost no exhaust noise. Even in sport mode, I didn't realize the other car, when we had the valves closed before we pulled the cats, the other car actually has aftermarket mufflers on it. Like, at some point, someone put an axle back on it, and it is a very quiet axle back that someone put on the other car, but it is aftermarket, and it does increase the noise a little bit. This being properly full stock, it is insanely quiet and makes almost nothing for noise whatsoever. The tone it does have is really nice, but the sheer volume is just nearly absolute silence, which is no fun. I'm sure if you were buying this car brand new in 2011 and you were some fancy lawyer who wanted this car to commute back and forth your 20 minutes to work, it would have been great. But for a car enthusiast or someone who wants to hear it, it's just not enough, which is all good. That is definitely something we can fix, and of course we have fixed on the other car, and it will continue to be obnoxiously loud no matter which chassis we use. But it is what it is, and that's what we have with this car. These things are just so smooth to drive. Like, I miss driving one of these. It is just so incredibly comfortable. It is incredibly tight. Everything and all the materials just feel phenomenal. The heated seats work fantastic. The heated steering wheel works fantastic. And it is just an incredible place to be. This thing did phenomenal on fuel, which is part of what makes me happy and makes me think this engine is really healthy. On the drive back from Calgary, of course, we averaged 10, 11 liters per 100 kilometers, which I don't know exactly what the conversion is, but this thing gets incredible fuel economy, especially for a supercharged V8 car. To be able to go 600, 700 kilometers on a tank of fuel, which is only an 80 liter-ish tank, is really good. These engines do incredible for efficiency, which I don't know how they do it. I don't know how they pack that much efficiency and that much power into the same power plant, but I will happily take it. Even the car that is tuned making ridiculous horsepower levels does just as good on fuel as any of the little supercharged or turbocharged 4-cylinder cars I've had, which is absolutely bonkers to me. It's got the heated microfilament in the windshield, which means when you start this thing up in the cold, the windshield defrosts like that because the microfilament does such a good job. The stereo is incredible. The heated seats work very well. Of course, it is not necessary this time of year, but it also has air-conditioned seats, which work great. The leather is in incredible shape in here. It's got great balance, as we can see here, having a little fun sliding it around, and it just does great for what it is. I think we did incredible purchasing this car for $6,800. Like, that is so cheap for what this is. And when we look at the depreciation from 117 grand new MSRP in 2024 dollars to $6,800 that we purchased it for as a happy, healthy, roadworthy, running, driving car with no funny noises, no lights on the dash, and a recent super stringent inspection, like, you can't beat that. In modern car pricing terms, you can barely get an economy Corolla, Cobalt, Civic, anything of that likes for $6,800. And even at that, a Corolla, a Civic, a Cobalt, a whatever for $6,800 probably has some troubles and probably has some rust issues and some other things going on anyhow. So for the amount of money, I think this was kind of a one-off case, but I will 100% take it all day, every day. Even if we look at what it would have cost me just to order the parts, like, I would have been around $6,000 just to go to Jaguar and pick up all of the parts I need to get the other car back on the road And then, of course, we wouldn't have anything extra to sell. We wouldn't have a spare complete engine, powertrain, diff, car, wheels. Like, it's insane the amount of value we have managed to pick up in buying this versus trying to find parts. And that is even if you can find parts. I wasn't able to find anybody parting out one of these cars that had the parts I needed in Canada looking for the last 3 months, let alone another one that was black, let alone another one that was in great shape, let alone another one that would solve all the issues that we needed solved. This just made so much more sense. And of course, it's something that's drivable and on the road as we speak, doing fantastic with the winter setup that we had on here. So I have no real room to complain. I am super, super happy with this car. And even though I don't yet know if we will use this chassis or if we will use the other chassis, we have finally purchased ourselves a proper solution to the problem of getting the XFR back on the road. And I am incredibly stoked about that. Thank you guys for joining. Please feel free to comment down below. Let me know, what do you think? Should we use the high K chassis with less BS and more work? Should we use the low kilometer chassis with potentially more BS in getting the salvage inspection done and less work without any powertrain swapping or anything of that nature? Let me know what you guys think. I'm curious. I honestly have no idea what I should do. I know I'm super happy. I finally found myself a solution, but I don't know yet exactly which way we'll go about that. And it is what it is. Thank you for joining along. Please, please, please remember to like, comment, subscribe, all of those things. We are making tons of progress and doing lots of stuff. There's a lot of content planned. There's a lot of XFR content planned. There's a lot of M6 content planned and a whole bunch of other cool stuff in the works that I'm excited to share with all of you guys. Thank you. Have yourself a wonderful day.